Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I'm going to talk about Moon square to Pluto in Synastry, what this aspect feels like, and some of the general themes that I found with this Synastry aspect. So this one can create a feeling of being unsafe or unsupported, or especially for the moon person, insecurity can come up with this aspect. It can feel downright scary, actually, for the moon person. And even for the Pluto person, too, the powerful feelings that this aspect brings up are definitely uncomfortable. So, this is not a safe and secure, cozy moon aspect. So, I would hope if you do have this aspect, you have some other aspects to that person's moon to help lighten this up a bit, because the square aspect of moon to Pluto pretty much creates this constant turmoil and emotional challenges getting brought up. So it's definitely one of those aspects that can show up if a relationship is kind of toxic. Sometimes we can see the Pluto person like downright controlling or manipulating, especially in an emotional sense, the moon person. The Pluto person, if they have a predisposition to kind of manipulative or like toxic behavior, which, a lot of people do, it just comes from being, unhealed and having like inner child wounding, or perhaps they're already plutonic, or they're a Scorpio moon, or, and on an unconscious level, right? So if the Pluto person is, unaware of their own plutonic or controlling tendencies or manipulative tendencies, and then this aspect shows up in the synastry, especially if it's in a really close orb, the Pluto person can sense, and this is more happening on an unconscious level, weakness in the moon person. Like they can really, almost like if they, take pleasure in this type of behavior, they can be like, woohoo, jackpot, I can control and manipulate this moon person and get them to do exactly what I want and say. So you can see that in like toxic relationships, you can see this show up where the moon person can look back at this relationship and just think, oh my goodness, like how did I let myself act like that? How did I let this Pluto person do this to me and affect me emotionally in this way? And the moon person and the Pluto person, they can both act pretty crazy with this aspect. Like this could show up in those kind of relationships that, movies are made about, or it's definitely can be a bit chaotic at times, definitely not boring. So those are, some of the negative manifestations. It could trigger a lot of jealousy as well in the Pluto person, and that could be where some of this controlling is coming from, because it's like the moon person's inner child self and their emotions and their deepest heart, coming from their moon and what they need to feel emotionally secure. All of that is triggering the Pluto person's need to control. And like Pluto is such a different force than moon, unless we have like a moon Pluto aspect in our natal chart, that Pluto can seem to be the cooler energy of this, where moon is the more warm usually, and it can switch, but Pluto can seem to be at times cold towards the moon person and unfeeling and unappreciative of, what it is that emotionally they need. Like they're not willingly giving this, and in some cases, in very severe cases, they're actively taking away what moon person needs to feel secure. But there can be, good with this aspect. There's certain people that like to have Pluto squares in their synastry or in their composite chart, because the square aspect does tend to produce, other than the conjunction, probably the most powerfully felt emotions, the most triggering experiences and difficulties can come from the square. So what that in turn means is that the most growth is going to come from the square. So in two people that are more self-aware and maybe more comfortable with this level of Plutonic energy, this can be a very transformative bond. This will definitely be a relationship where you look back to the person you were before this and you are not the same person. You have shifted, you have changed, and hopefully for the better. Sometimes it's going to be for the worse, unfortunately. But hopefully, the highest possible expression of this aspect is that it could be very deeply healing for both people, and this can be a very emotionally connected experience. The Pluto person does care about the moon person, and it's just they don't know how to express it in a way that makes the moon person feel safe or feel loved, or feel appreciated. So it's interesting, like, how this shows up, like, because the Pluto person does deeply care about the moon person and wants them, and there is a lot of emotional connection with this, telepathic connection with this, but it just tends to be difficult to actually coexist together, for whatever reason. Usually the Pluto person is just too triggered by the way the moon person deeply is, and that's why this can be really difficult for a long term. I would consider this aspect a red flag in a relationship. I wouldn't consider it to be one of my worst aspects, because there is a lot of love and care, even if it definitely doesn't seem like it at times. But it could definitely be a red flag. You want to look at the whole synastry and see, if there is some Jupiter, great Mercury connections, Venus connections, and other connections to the moon person's moon that are more soft and gentle, then this could work, and it's just going to increase their telepathy. It's going to increase their emotional connection. It's going to increase the transformative level of this relationship, turning it into like this cathartic, amazing, transformative experience where, you don't need to go to therapy. You don't need to do some type of psychedelic trip or something. You can just date someone whose Pluto is square your moon, or vice versa, and you're gonna transform and change emotionally in a huge way. So it can definitely be the shadows are like on my face there. It can definitely be a positive thing depending on the people. I guess I can't avoid those shadows. Hey, that's actually kind of perfect. Like, the shadows on me, the light is like trying to come in, but the shadows are on me. It's very significant and relevant for a moon square to Pluto contact in synastry, because the shadows do come up, and it's the shadows in both people that get brought up, and it's just the way that they get brought up is the most uncomfortable with the square. Like, the square is this aspect of constant tension, so it can be very frightening for people. This aspect can cause anxiety. There's certain aspects in synastry that can cause anxiety. This one can definitely bring that up in both people, because the moon is like our security, what we need to feel fulfilled emotionally. It can be relevant to home life too. So when we have Pluto square to our moon, it's like the Pluto person can, in a sense, like uproot the moon person's life in such a way, like that, their home life, their foundation, their security is like severely challenged, right? So, ideally in synastry, you don't want to have a highly afflicted moon. You don't want to have your moon making a ton of squares to the other person's chart, right? Because that is going to be emotionally damaging for you. But at the same time, with the way that people are and the way that, no two birth charts are without conflict or, squares in your own natal chart, you can withstand, some squares like this to your moon. But you really want to be honest with yourself, like, are there other aspects that are going to provide relief and release? Because this is not a sanctuary of peace. This is not a calming, soothing effect. This is a very challenging emotional aspect for both of them, but especially the moon. And the Pluto person is having to confront their control issues, is having to confront anywhere that they are kind of toxic and whatever they need to let go of. They're basically going to have to die and be reborn to be able to exist in a relationship with this person, the moon person. And so they can get really ugly. Their ugliness can really come out, and other people can really see it too. If this relationship is out in public, like, people can really see some ugly, nasty things come out of both people, but specifically Pluto in this relationship. So yeah, and the other thing about this relationship or this specific aspect is it's extremely hard to let go of. Like, this is the type of person where they never let go of their ex. Like, if this is in the Synastry, like, they always come back to this relationship. The Pluto person is always keeping tabs on that moon person and following them on social media. And sometimes, this could even be like with other difficult aspects. This could be like a stalking aspect, or like that kind of not being able to let go. It's like the Pluto person always wants to keep an eye on the moon person forever. And so that can be very scary. This can feel very invasive to the moon person. The moon person can feel vulnerable and invaded, but if the Pluto person is coming from a good place and it has a good heart, their ability to see into the moon person's emotions and telepathically connect with them and send them energy can be used for good, right? So any Synastry aspect, positive or negative, you can't just say 100% matter-of-factly that this is going to manifest in a negative way, because people and souls are so amazing that we can take an aspect like this and just derive gold out of it. So there's definitely the potential for huge transformation, probably more than any of the Moon Pluto aspects with this aspect, but it's going to be the most difficult. So those are some of the things to be aware of. I'd love to know your experience of this aspect in Synastry. Was it like this? Was it not like this? Let me know in the comments, you guys, and keep your requests coming. We'll talk soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.